New Orleans has given us some of the most iconic cocktails in the world, and today we're gonna make one of its oldest and one of its most debated drinks. And it happens to be the official cocktail of New Orleans. Yes, we're gonna make a Sazerac, so let's just dive into it. Now at its core, the Sazerac is just really an old-fashioned style cocktail. It's got a base spirit, sugar, and bitters. But it's got a little twist. It comes in an absinthe washed glass. Now today we're gonna make the cocktail the way that I like to make it. And that, like all other Sazeracs, begins with the base spirit. And for that, I like to use a rye whiskey. There's a myth that some of the first Sazeracs were made with brandy. But we know that when the drink was first mentioned as a standalone cocktail back in like 1899, rye was already being used. Now today I'm going with Rittenhouse rye. This is a bottle and bond Kentucky style rye. It's got a slightly higher corn content and a little bit of a lower rye in the mash. And it's kind of similar to the original rye whiskey that was used that helped to make this drink so famous. To sweeten the drink, we are going to be using a Demerara syrup. The original recipe for a Sazerac does call for a sugar cube to sweeten it, but I like to use syrups because I don't like the way sugar cubes leave that half dissolved, gritty sugar at the bottom of the drink. And I went with a Demerara syrup instead of a regular simple because Demerara is an unrefined sugar, so it ends up adding like a deeper caramelized note to the drink and just gives it that much more character. And for the bitters, we're gonna be using Peychauds. For me, this is a non-negotiable when it comes to making a Sazerac. This is a New Orleans staple. It's a lighter style bitters with notes of cherry and clove, anise, and gentian. Now some people do like to add in a drop or two of Angostura to sort of round out the drink, but I actually think that pulls away from what the drink was meant to be. Now for the last ingredient, and maybe the one that makes a Sazerac, we have the absinthe. Now absinthe is one of those spirits that's a little polarizing. It has a very strong and distinct anise flavor, so people like to think of it as being sort of licoricey, but I know people that do not like absinthe that absolutely love Sazeracs. The reason why this flavor works in the drink is because we're only using a tiny amount of absinthe. This is what's used to wash the glass. Now speaking of the glass, let's talk about that, because it's kind of important when it comes to a Sazerac. The Sazeracs are never poured over ice, and you always want the glass to be really cold. Now traditionally they're served in a lowball glass or an old-fashioned glass, which is what I'm going to be using today. What you really want to make sure is that the glass is thick, like it has a nice thick base and thick walls, because we're going to chill it down before we make the cocktail. And there's two ways you could do it. You could add ice ahead of time, or you can just do what I do and put it in the freezer. So either way, you're going to want this glass to be thick and ice cold before you pour the drink. All right, now that we have our glassware in the freezer getting nice and icy cold, it's time to build the drink. So we'll just start with a mixing glass, because obviously this is a stirred cocktail. It's pretty much all booze here. And we'll just begin by adding our ingredients. And you'll see how easy it is to make a Sazerac. So we'll begin by adding 2 ounces of the rye whiskey. Next we'll add the Demerara. We'll add 1/4 ounce. Then we'll add our bitters, 3 dashes of Peychauds. You can always add more if you want. Next we'll just add some ice. I like to use larger cubes just because they'll chill the cocktail down and it won't dilute quite as much. We're gonna stir for about 30 seconds. Remember, we want this thing to get icy cold, and it's okay if it dilutes a little bit because it's not gonna be over any ice in the glass. Okay, and once that is diluted down and nice and chilled, we'll just set that aside and let it rest for a second, and we'll grab that frozen glass. And this is the part that I like. So we're just gonna add some absinthe to the glass, just a few drops, and then just swish it around in the glass, just to coat the walls all the way up. Oh, a little bit came out there. Some people like to toss whatever's left in there, but I keep it in just because I love absinthe. And once that's all coated properly, we will just strain the cocktail directly into the glass. And it's not going to fill the glass. Sazerac's not meant to, so you're gonna have quite the wash line here, a lot of space between the top of the glass and where it sits. Now to finish the cocktail off, we're gonna need a lemon. Just gonna go ahead and peel a nice swath of lemon, express a little oil over the top of the drink, and then just kiss the rim. And I don't typically serve a Sazerac with the lemon. I usually just toss it. But if you want, sometimes it's nice to just set the peel right on top and just serve it like that. And it's pretty minimalistic. That's a Sazerac. That is how they're supposed to look. Cheers. You really don't need the lemon peel with this drink, honestly. I don't know why I put it on there. I think that the rye complements the Peychauds perfectly. The Demerara just serves to give it a little bit of that mouthfeel that you wouldn't get from just a regular sugar cube. You get the absinthe, so you get that anise and that sort of licoricey vibe, but it's not so overpowering that that's all you taste when you drink the drink. So I think this is one of the reasons that people who don't like absinthe still like the Sazerac. So yeah, it's a great drink. If you haven't had one, you should try one. And if you do make them and you use different ingredients like cognac or you mix in other types of bitters, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. And until next time, cheers. Anyway, I guess I rate this drink in my usual subjective rating scale as a 8.5. I think it's an 8.5.